The next game is For the King and Me by Steve Finn from Dr. Finn Games and Yellow, published by Yellow. Now, in this game, we are playing as, I believe, it's kind of like, again, I'm going to try and go into a theme, even though it's not a very, it's a fairly abstract game. But we're kind of nobles trying to make sure that by the end of it, by the end of the game, we have played our cards the best and backed the absolute best colors or causes that are going to be worth the most.
That doesn't sound very thematic.
It's a stretch. It's a real stretch.
Because they're coloured suits of cards, essentially. Yeah. And if you've ever played the game Biblios, this is re-implementation of Biblios. I would say that it's almost just a reskinning of Biblios with one slight twist. And so if you played Biblios, the core mechanic of the game, and the reason why I love Biblios so much, is the way that cards are drafted in this game. So in the first half of the game, you're going to be taking the pile of cards or the deck of cards and drafting cards one at a time. And you're going to be able to keep one of those cards for yourself. And then you're going to put, depending on the number of players, you're going to put one out per player in front of you as a market for the rest of the players. And then you're going to be allocating one to a later auction pile. But the trick of this game is that you can only draft one of the cards at a time. And so you've got to make a decision at what point do you want to keep the card that you have in your hand versus give it to other people. So you might draw a slightly appealing card and you don't know if the next cards are going to be less appealing or more appealing. And so it's that tension every time about which cards do you want to give to your opponents versus keep for yourself. And I really enjoy that. We do that until the entire deck runs out. And then the cards that have been put aside for auction, you've got coin cards that you've drafted along the way in your hand of cards. And there's also that you're going to be using to bid on cards of the different suits. And at the end of the game, the person with the most points in each suit is going to get to win some points for that suit. But interestingly, unlike original Biblios, in this game, you also get points if you're second place on that suit as well. The tricky thing and the interactive thing is that throughout the game, there are also cards that are going to influence the amount of points that a suit is worth. And in this particular version of the game, in Biblios, we have the die that is just going up and down to change the number of points that one suit is worth. In this game, you're manipulating the first player number of points, and the second player always gets half of that rounded down. And so you're not really changing the second player points unless you have to. That was confusing. But basically, if you like Biblios, For the King and Me introduces second place points. And that's really it. Aside from the theme changing and the fact that now we are no longer using dice as our point counter, we have these cute little ribbons that go under the family crest. And that is one thing that I like about it, in that at the end of the game, it's very easy to divvy up the points because you have your own family crest and you just take the ribbon and put it and kind of clicks under your family crest, and then you simply add up the number of points. I do like the element of having second place as well. However, it feels super fiddly on the way through the game. So the ribbons themselves are quite thin and you're constantly changing their value. And then based on whatever you change that to, then you've got to change the second place ribbon. And there's a lot of just like...
there's more administration than there was with just the one die that goes up and down.
And because my favorite part of it is really the card drafting, I don't see the point of owning both, first of all.
No. It's the same game, really.
It's the same game. You don't need to own both. And for my preferences and just the fact that I don't really like fiddly elements in game, Biblios and it's the shape of its box and the smaller footprint. Biblios is my favorite. I never had a problem with the art in Biblios. It's much more abstract. So if you enjoy the theme of this one and the kind of cartoony style, then certainly check out For the King and Me, but it is essentially the same game.
Yeah, it's the same game. So I do enjoy the artwork in this one. It's not a game, it's a game that I often find myself as I'm going through it. I think because there's strategy, but not a lot of there's only so much that you can do with a strategy. Because, for example, even when you're drafting those cards, and you're deciding, you're very limited because you're kind of doing one at a time, and you're kind of having to commit of like, oh yeah, maybe hopefully I don't draw, like I'm committing to this card, and then you draw, you know, an extra 2 cards and they ended up being better, and so it's like, oh. And so I always find that as I'm playing through it, I'm like, it just feels like so many elements of it are luck. And then even when I win at the end, like, because I often will win this one, I'm like, well, there you go, that's cool. I almost, sometimes I'll feel like, I don't feel like I deserved it. Like, I don't feel like I worked hard enough mentally, you know.
I think it's just fun, and Maggie hates fun.
I do hate fun.
So it is just a fun game. Everyone that I've taught finds it really fun, except Maggie. So that is essentially the same game. I was really excited to hear that there was a new version of Biblios, but I have to say it is essentially the same game. I love the core game. So if you don't have Biblios already, check out For the King and Me. This review was just a short little snippet from our series Small Talk, which is on our YouTube channel, ThinkerThemer, which you can find at thinkerthemer.com, or just look it up on YouTube, where we do lots of board game reviews and we look at our top 10 crowd-funded Kickstarter campaigns every fortnight. So check that out if you enjoyed this review, and we look forward to seeing you over at our channel. Bye for now.
Bye.